It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Ladies and gentlemen, you saw the Xerox press release. I'm sure you saw it by now. Most of our industry's analysts and media have copied and pasted it on their blogs. I suggest you just go to Xerox website or any of the players' websites to get the information. But I wanted to do some insight on this because I believe Xerox is telling the industry a very important story. And I think that we need to pay attention to what Xerox is telling the industry. Xerox is the largest provider of print equipment, its supplies and services into the end user's office. They're bigger than anybody in the world. And I think people need to get that through their head. I'm still having arguments with people about whether or not Xerox is an OEM. They're not an OEM, they're a dealer. I get it, they make a few high-end machines, but that's such a small part of our industry. And that industry is just full of everybody and their brother trying to run around getting displacement growth, thinking they're hitting home runs. I've done the episodes on that. But ladies and gentlemen, Xerox is telling us something in this press release. We better pay attention. So without any further ado, I want to share some thoughts on the press release. I'm not going to read the whole damn thing, but I want to read some snippets from it. And disciplined execution and revenue diversification, said Stephen Van Razak, Chief Executive Officer. Disciplined execution and revenue diversification. Ladies and gentlemen, it's about revenue diversification. That's what this is about. Xerox, what do people know them as? The print people, the copy people. Do you really believe that end users have the same value for Xerox, the copier and print people, as they had for Xerox back in the 1970s, 80s, and 90s? No. 2000s? No. It's the year 2024 and people are printing less every single day, and you better figure out where you're going to get revenue diversification from. Within this press release, there's some other snippets I want to talk about. They're making some structural changes. They're making human capital changes. In the core print business, simplify our core products to align with the needs of economic buyers of today's hybrid workplace. Economic buyers. What do they mean by that? I'll tell you what they mean by that. The value of print equipment, guess what? It's lower and lower and lower, and so are the prices. It's becoming more of a commodity than ever before. And it's going to be those that understand that those buyers are going to be looking at the economics of the deliverable as they evaluate where they're going to put their money in their business. We all better start paying attention to that. Increase investments in partnered, enabled go-to-market model that supports how clients prefer to procure their print solutions. Xerox, like everybody in our industry, better be figuring out what's the best path for their customers to procure the equipment. Does anybody really believe that path is still a 5-year lease that's prematurely upgraded 3 years? No, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. And those days are ending soon. Global business services. Garner operating leverage and investment capacity for our growth segments through lower transaction cost. I've been telling you all for a while now, it'll be those that'll cut the cost that their competitors are unwilling to cut that'll win. It'll be those that are willing to cut the cost that competitors aren't willing to cut that'll win. And ladies and gentlemen, we've got to cut costs. We've got to look at every single cost in that core deliverable of print. And we better figure out how we're going to lower those costs so we can gain profitability so that we can diversify our revenue. IT and digital services. Create greater organizational focus. Xerox emergent digital services and IT service capabilities to accelerate revenue diversification toward markets with higher growth and profitable profiles. Toward higher growth and profitable profiles. I got to do a big clap for that. Because it sounds to me like Xerox realizes that you better have the right persona, you better have the right profile, you better be moving upstream, and you better be looking for profitable customers. Running around selling $1,000 IT services contracts is not going to get you where you need to go. And in Xerox's case, I assure you, they could easily go out and sell hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of $1,000 IT services contracts. The problem is, they'll go bankrupt doing it. Xerox can run around and try to jam IT inside customers' offices by selling some kind of a license where there's no money in it. There's no aftermarket in it. And at the end of the day, if Xerox wants to get into IT services by chasing revenue, by trying to fool the investors that they're selling all this IT, but they're not making any money on it, it won't work. The investors will figure it out. So Xerox, you got to stay with that. You got to make sure you're hitting the right profile. Make sure you got the right persona. And you'll succeed in this. But ladies and gentlemen, in order for Xerox to see, they got to make human capital adjustments. And folks, everybody in our industry is going to have to make human capital adjustment. You can't diversify your revenue streams with all the same people on the bus. It's impossible. And organizations, whether you're a small dealer, a big dealer, a private equity backed dealer, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have to look at your human capital. Are those vice presidents of sales really going to get you to the next level? They were good when we were schlepping hardware out there, doing 5-year leases that we prematurely upgraded in 3 years. They were good at that. But can they help you sell services? Some services that don't even include any hardware at all? Can they help you grow a consulting firm? Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be a tough thing. Human capital adjustments are always tough because it's about people. I do want to congratulate all those folks that got promoted over at Xerox. I wish you the best. But it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. And I wish the best to all the people that are leaving. But ladies and gentlemen, our industry is going to go through this. You know, Xerox is making an announcement they're going to cut 15% of the workforce. You know, folks, a long time ago I was telling some dealers that if you took the entire BTA organization, if you took all the dealers that were in that BTA organization, and let's just say that one day they were all the same company, the first thing that a smart leader would do that did that would be to send out an edict that says we're going to cut our service department by 15% so we give the best service we ever gave. People just looked at me like I was crazy. How are you going to cut the service department by 15% and give better service? Because it'll force disciplines. It'll force those technicians to have the right part in their car. They won't have time to go back and forth. It'll force the leaders running those service departments to make sure that those technicians are trained so they don't waste time. It'll force the management of those service departments to make sure that their time is accounted for. And when you move into IT services, you better be accounting for the time because it's one of your biggest costs, if not the biggest. It's all about that human investment. Big change is coming. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe it was when I was kicking off the 2024 video, and I showed you this slide, and I said 2024, a reckoning year for intangible assets. It's a reckoning year for everything in our industry, but intangible assets are definitely on the reevaluation place. And I want you to all think about this. You know, ladies and gentlemen, think about the brand, an intangible asset, the brand. Think about the Xerox brand. Does that Xerox name have the same value that it had in 1990 or 80 or 2000 or even 2014, 10 years ago? Or do people think about Xerox as this copier company and printer company, and at the end of the day, well, people don't print that much or copy. So obviously the brand around copy and print is diminishing, whether you want to admit it or not. Everybody knows it. So the only way to make that brand more valuable is to do what? You better be able to figure out how to bring more value to the brand. Diversification of revenue that's declining. Think about the knowledge that our industry has. Oh my gosh. Think about little Billy and Sally. They know the first copy speed of every device in the portfolio. They know how fast the duplexer is. They understand buyouts like nobody's business. They understand how to do a 5-year lease and go prematurely upgraded in 3 years. They understand the competition's 55-page-a-minute machine is really only 48 pages a minute if you use the dock feeder. They understand all that stuff. But guess what? All that knowledge isn't worth anything. Not near as much as it was back in 1980 or 90. Think about trademarks. Some of our trademarks, we're proud of these trademarks, right? Holy smokes, that trademark we're so proud of. We started in the basement. This is our trademark. Well, that was 35 years ago. And guess what? I hope you moved out of the basement and your trademark's probably not worth near what it was just a few short years ago. Think about patents. This is a good one. I think about Canon. Canon loves to brag about all their patents, and they got a boatload of patents. Tens of thousands of patents. But if those patents are all around laser printing and copying, are those patents near as valuable as they were back in 1990 or 1980? Hell no, they're not worth that. Goodwill. Think about all the private equity that ran around. They bought up all these copier dealers all over the country. Okay? Well, when they bought up those companies, they had a vision. They had a vision of what they were going to do in those accounts. I believe that vision is not nearly as clear as it might have been when they set the vision, right? So in all reality, I believe the goodwill is going to take a major adjustment. Our friends over at Xerox, they have 90% of the Fortune 500. They got 175,000 small businesses that their literally services applies to, and they got 145 countries they do business in. They better figure out how to reevaluate their value. Because visions based in reality will always modify, causing one to question yesterday's relevance. If we're not willing to question yesterday's relevance, we are going to be wiped off the planet by the competitor who delivered a better experience to our great relationship. It's going to happen. Xerox is modifying. They're questioning the value of their relevance. They know that that brand needs to remain important to people, needs to be recognizable to people. They want that brand to represent delivering services into small businesses, medium business, and enterprise businesses. That when people think about those services, they think about Xerox like they did when they were printing. Ladies and gentlemen, to this day, people still call the copy machine down the hallway a Xerox, and it's probably a Konica or a Ricoh, a Sharp or a Toshiba. There was a lot of value in that Xerox brand, but that value around printing copy is slowly diminishing. And guess what? It's speeding up in its demise. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to do a little comparison here. And I like doing these comparisons because I know that folks get passionate about who they represent in the marketplace. And I'm sure the folks over at Ricoh are all excited. They can't wait to do the press releases, how Xerox is going to lay off 15% of their people. By the way, stop using the word lay off, all of you. You're not laying anybody off. They're gone for good. Okay? You're not bringing those people back. But when I think about Ricoh, I think about a company that barely makes operating profit. I think about a company whose aspirations for operating profit are always really low. I think about a company that's running around Europe buying up a whole bunch of IT business. And at the end of the day, I've cautioned them, and I'm going to scream to the top of my lungs over this, that we got to stop doing this. We got to stop running around buying up, thinking we're going to pull off some miracle. We better clearly define the profitable deliverable and sell to the right persona. Congratulations, Xerox, for recognizing that and saying that. I'm going to hold you to it. But ladies and gentlemen, when I think about Xerox operating profit, you know, in 2021 they had 5.3%. It's not a big home run, but it sure as hell isn't 2 or 1.8%. If you look at them this year, the first quarter they had 6.9%. Second quarter they had 6.1%. Third quarter they had 4.1%. They're probably going to end up at 5% for the year. If folks, good, bad, or ugly, you got to make money. Especially if you're a publicly traded company. And being a publicly traded company is going to be a real problem for Xerox. Because during this transition, this diversification, it's going to be painful. They're going to have to make huge investments. They're going to have to be extremely strategic. And they're going to have to make decisions. And they're going to have to cut costs that their competitors aren't willing or fear to cut. But at the end of the day, when I think about Konica, anybody that compares Konica to Xerox and they think Konica's some big home run, Konica's been a disaster for 3 straight years. They're in the 4th year of a disaster, ladies and gentlemen. Is that mean to say to them? Well, I don't really care because it's the truth. They have not made money for 3 straight years and the first half of this year. Their numbers for their 3rd quarter will be out here in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to go through them. But geez, ladies and gentlemen, what did Konica do? They ran around and they bought up all this stuff, and they tell the whole world that their IT business is growing and all this stuff. I would love to know how many customers they're adding in All Covered as opposed to how many they're losing. Are they really growing the IT services business? I believe the previous administration, in many ways here in America, made some terrible decisions at Konica Minolta, and I believe the current administration at Konica Minolta here in America is making terrible decisions, and I also believe that the corporate office back in Japan is making terrible decisions. But more importantly, I believe that Konica Minolta is going to have to do what Xerox is doing, and they're going to have to make some human capital adjustments. Because the people that were in the bus aren't necessarily going to get that bus where it needs to go today. Ladies and gentlemen, y'all seen the bell curve, an industry life cycle. You know, at one point in time, our industry was in the embryonic stage. Those days are long gone. It's not 1965 anymore, okay? It's the year 2024. We're on the other side of the bell, ladies and gentlemen. We're in the decline. We're not going to sell more print tomorrow. And those smaller companies out there that, You know, if you really believe that delivering toner to somebody on a Saturday is going to help you grow your business, that's not where you need to grow. Because sooner or later, they won't need you to show up on Saturday to deliver them toner. Because they're just going to click buy now from Amazon. It's going to show up probably the same day, whether that's a Saturday or a Sunday. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for our industry to go into another embryonic phase. And that'll be the transition, the diversification of the industry. I want you all to think about it. I'll show you two logos here. My friends over at ImageQuest, who I was fortunate enough to be able to spend some time with Milton and his company for a couple of years. I really enjoyed that time because I learned a lot about diversification and transition of a print-based company. And my friends over there at Impact Networking. You know, folks, there's no doubt in my mind, or no doubt in your mind, that I'm a fan of Impact. I got their cooler sitting right here. I love Impact Networking. And the reason I love Impact Networking is because they're diversifying their revenue, and they're successful at it. You know, when I was with Milton, we had a chart, and we couldn't wait for that service revenue of IT services and non-print service revenue to pass the print service revenue. We couldn't wait to get there. Boy, we fought every day. That was our passion. That was our purpose. And the day that it crossed and it was delivering more revenue to the company, we were presented an opportunity. Do we just vendor manage another print provider for our print? That was one option. Do we just get the hell out of print altogether? That was another option. In Milton's case, because print was just such a small part of the business in a revenue, he decided to get out of the print business. And ladies and gentlemen, he's done very well being an IT services company. I left him in 2016, and it's a remarkable company, and you've seen me profile him many times on The End of the Day with Ray. I talked to my buddy Frank Kuko, and he told me he had his best month last month, or this month, his best month. I'm talking to a lot of other people who are saying December sucked. Well, it's terrible. Frank Kuko had his best month, $40 million. Ladies and gentlemen, that $40 million, that run rate, that puts him at his $500 million. I got an exercise for you all to do. Take your run rate. Take your best month this year. And then in 36 months, that should be your run rate for the year. But that only works if you're in a growing marketplace. That only works if your deliverable is growing. It's not going to work in print because you went out and bought $20 million worth of business. You grew your print business by $20 million, but at the end of the day, everything you bought's going to decline from the second you bought it. Because people print more tomorrow, or less tomorrow than they'll ever print today. We all know that. But if you're in a business that's in the embryonic stage, because you decided you're going to diversify, you're going to transition, you're going to get into these other deliverables, guess what? That's all about growth. You know, folks, it's all about growth. And I'll tell you this, it used to take a long time to get on the other side of that bell curve. You know, in our industry, by God, it took a long time, decades. That's not the case today. The IT services deliverable that Milton was delivering when he started that company completely changed to where he is today. Frank Kuko was one of the, pioneers in IT services. He was in it a long time ago, and he was in it in the wrong way, and he realized it. So what did he do? He stopped it, got rid of all of it. What was he doing? Break, fix type IT. We can't do this crap anymore. It's stupid. It doesn't make us any money. We got to figure out who the customer's going to be that'll give us the most money, and we got to move in that direction. And we got to figure out how to sell intellect instead of selling products. Because those successful IT service deliverables all about intellect. Xerox, you got to sell the intellect. You got to be able to proudly go out there and sell assessments. And people should be excited to pay you the money for the assessment because they trust that you're going to deliver them something of value. So ladies and gentlemen, my challenge to all of you is get into the embryonic stage right now. Regardless of where you're at with print, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Just figure out how you're going to replace that revenue that's going to decline whether you want it to or not. And you can't buy your way out of this. The only thing you can do in print is cut costs that your competitors are unwilling to cut. And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.